Today, the biggest confession was made at the Madlanga Commission. The South African Police Service is darker than we thought. The things that go on there are just too dark for the public to see. No wonder General Khan faked his own assassination just to escape testifying at the Madlanga Commission. This corruption did not start now. This underworld business has been going on since 2014. Drug lords pay the police to run dirty businesses for them. They pay the police to help them crush their competitors, and sometimes these police officers seize drugs, then hand them over to these drug lords in exchange for money. Dear viewers, grab your cup of coffee, sit back and relax, because the confession you're going to hear in this video will automatically destroy your trust in police officers. Names were mentioned. Politicians, police generals, businessmen, all were mentioned. Please do us a favor, hit that like button, share this video with everyone, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. General Khan faked his own assassination because he does not want to expose these criminals. But if you think these criminals should be exposed, type in the comments section, expose them all. Let's all jointly echo it to the world. Jabulani, roll the clip.
Carney Links was registered and operated lawfully to date. For example, in paragraph 18, to date, the company has always made the payments due to SARS on time and accurately, except as mentioned below. In 19, the company has also abided by the requirements of VAT and income tax, except as itemized below. I don't think it's necessary for us to go into the individual instances of this conduct. I've set out already for the commissioners the topics that they cover. So if I may skip over those, they are under different headings, but as you go through it, you'll see that they relate to what I've said about evading income tax, excise duties, VAT, illegal trading in relation to the Grunling heading. It concerns the payment of cash for certain benefits, and again, also cash payments to avoid tax. Infiltration of SARS. And I'm just going to scroll past these. There's the Pitchessa engagement. I just want to point out that, and commissioners, you'll see throughout this is not just an conduct that was undertaken by Mr. Mazzotti on his own. He did it in concert with Mr. Mo Sayed and with Mr. Phillips. For example, when you look at paragraph 51, he says, in February 2013, Pitchessa approached me with an offer which I discussed with Sayed and Phillips. We accepted his proposal, which was wrong and has landed our company in trouble, and in retrospect, we should never have done this, and then he describes the arrangement in some detail. He goes on in paragraph 54 to explain the 8 million rand in cash that they were able to raise in this engagement that was not accounted for in the books of the company. And he then explains what he used the 8 million rand for. In paragraph 61, it's clear that he accepts that Carney Links acquired tobacco unlawfully and wrongfully of 2 tons per week over a period of time. He goes on to explain further contraventions of the law, and he says the unlawful conduct. And here's where he deals with payments to legal advisors. And Chair, what's important about this is that we're no longer talking about tax non-compliance. This affidavit has moved off tax non-compliance at this point. It's talking about fraud and corruption. I'm not going to mention the names of the legal advisors that are named in the affidavit. He does say in relation to at least one of them that you'll see in paragraph 83 of the affidavit. That he persistently referred to his contacts at SARS and in particular mentioned Johan van Lochrenberg and Ivan Pillay. We were naive to believe that he could influence van Lochrenberg and Pillay to favor our company. This we accept now is in a manner of speaking nonsense and that we were misled. But in the process, we paid 800,000 rand in cash to this legal advisor. And so on, Chair, Commissioners, to the end of the affidavit. And you'll see at page 52 of the affidavit, again, I'm not sure what page it is in your bundle, is the signature and the date on which it was commissioned, 6 May 2014. The settlement agreement ultimately concluded is at page 83 of your bundle when you're ready, although we're not going to go through it in detail, Chair, unless you wish to. Chair, I see you reading, so I'm just waiting for you.
No, please go ahead.
So it's at 83, but at page 98 of the settlement agreement, the date of the signature is 27 October 2020, and it was signed by the directors. Of Carney Links and two of the directors and a SARS representative. And that agreement is, really what it does in a nutshell is it records SARS's position and view that the cigarettes, that cigarettes manufactured by Carney Links were presented on paper as having been moved and exported lawfully, but that there were no documents to prove a lawful export. So the effect was that SARS treated the cigarettes as having been diverted into South Africa without customs duties, VAT, etc., being paid.
Ms. Assam, I think it's only right, perhaps fair, that you also put on record paragraph 1.1.3 of that settlement agreement. It mentions two specific individuals against whom this debt is raised, and therefore not everybody who is a director or shareholder.
Yes, Commissioner Beloy, it says that the amount in dispute means the debt raised by SARS against Carney Links, the company, of which Mr. Mazzotti, Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Sayed are directors. So it's against the company as well as Phillips and Mazzotti in their personal capacities.
Thank you.
The amount in dispute is about 31.5 million, but the settlement agreement concluded on basis of 25 million and something. So those are, that is the factual basis of the allegations of the conduct of Carney Links. And then the directors who are engaged in, in that unlawful conduct. The allegations, well, the admissions in the affidavit of fraud and corruption, we have no knowledge of anything further coming of it, whether there were any charges, whether there was any action that was taken. It's not within SARS jurisdiction to follow up on those. To be provided to me, but I don't have it.
So I will only read that Major General Khan is an adult male, head of operational intelligence support at Crime Intelligence at the South African Police Services, and he holds the rank of Major General since 1 September 2017. I will pause there.
And I will just correct the Major General and say it's a service singular. It's a South African Police Service. It's never service. It's not with subs. Thank you. It may appear unimportant, but it's actually very important.
Noted, Chair. Thank you for that, Commissioner Khumalo. So, Chair, the first topic is the question of the tenders. And I would like to clarify that what the purpose of us going here is. It's not a roving inquiry into ordinary procurement irregularities or garden variety tender fraud. It's directed at whether a SAPS officer, a crime intelligence officer, a senior member of the service was a conduit for private, commercial, or criminal interests, and whether they were able to gain access or influence or corrupt or compromise law enforcement structures. As such, it falls squarely within the terms of reference of this commission. So that's the approach and the framing that I'd like the commissioners to bear in mind as we enter the discussion on the tenders. The first set of tenders relate to a gentleman by the name of Mr. Mo Sayed, and he is a director of a company called Carney Links. And Chair, I'm going to read the submission that they have provided to us. They provided it last night, and I think it's important in all fairness to read it into the record. And I'd like you, please, to have a look at page 129 of the answering affidavit. Before I do so,
What's the file marked on the spine?
urgent application, answering papers, file 1 of 2. This is relevant because when I read out the submission, you'll see it's partly a response to what the Commission placed in its answering papers. And in that section on page 129, in paragraph 14, we say that there have been consistent allegations that Carney Links is engaged in illegal tobacco trading.
Maybe, sorry, Ms. Hassan, maybe for the record, you should say who deposed to the affidavit. If it wasn't protected information.
Who deposed to the answering affidavit? As luck would have it, my copy doesn't have the signature on it. This is, in fact, if I'm correct, it would be our investigator, Mr. Tsepo Nyatlo, who deposed to this. And this was based on his investigations, and there are annexures that support the contents of the paragraphs. But this paragraph, where it says for over a decade there have been consistent allegations that Carney Links is engaged in illegal tobacco trading, points us to several pieces of documentation. The first you'll see in 14.1 are several media reports. And I'm not going to go there. It shows that the allegations had been widely published and in some detail. In 14.2, there are two further documents that are attached. One is a media statement by the South African Tobacco Transformation Alliance, and the other is an Ipsos study. Now, this is not the entire basis upon which we make these allegations, and I'll explain why. But I'm going to go to the Carney Link submission because it's in response to this that they provide the submission. And let me go right there. Chair,
were they invited to make this submission?
They were not invited to make the submission. It's a voluntary submission, and it'll be apparent when I read this, the context in which they do make it. And as I said, Chair, I think given that I am going to go in some detail through the chat, it's important that their version is placed on record before I do so. Yes. Sorry, Chair. Okay, let me begin. So, Chair, the submission is signed by Mr. Adriano Mazzotti, and it was provided to the Commission yesterday evening. If I start at paragraph 1, these submissions are made voluntarily by Carney Links Pty Limited. Carney Links. Carney Links has not been issued with a notice by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System, the Commission, nor has it been requested or directed to provide evidence or submissions. The company nevertheless considers it appropriate in the interests of fairness and to assist the Commission in the proper discharge of its mandate to place certain relevant facts before it. Carney Links has become aware that allegations concerning the company appear in the affidavit deposed to by the Commission's investigator, Tsepo Nyatlo, as well as in the Rule 3 notice issued to one of its directors, Mohammed Sayed, in his personal capacity. Although the Rule 3 notice is directed exclusively to Sayed and not to Carney Links, the company is concerned that allegations affecting its business, reputation, and commercial standing may ultimately be considered without the benefit of Carney Links' own explanation and the broader factual and regulatory context within which those allegations arise. Carney Links accordingly tenders these submissions voluntarily. It does so not to challenge the Commission's mandate, nor to relitigate historical regulatory matters with the South African Revenue Service, but to assist the Commission by placing before it a balanced account of the company's history, regulatory engagement, and present position. Carney Links supports the Commission's constitutional mandate to investigate criminality, corruption, and political interference within the criminal justice system. It has no interest in shielding unlawful conduct by any person or entity and welcomes any lawful process that advances accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. At the same time, Carney Links respectfully submits that findings affecting the reputation of any corporate entity should be based upon credible, independently verifiable evidence and should distinguish carefully between historical regulatory defaults, historical conduct voluntarily disclosed pursuant to Chapter 16 of the Tax Administration Act, unresolved tax disputes being determined through statutory mechanisms, allegations made by competitors or industry participants, media reports and public commentary, industry-sponsored reports, and evidence capable of establishing present-day unlawful conduct. It is against that background that Carney Links respectfully places the following facts before the Commission. Carney Links is a South African cigarette manufacturer duly incorporated in accordance with the laws of the Republic. Carney Links was established in May 2011 and has for approximately 15 years operated within one of the most comprehensively regulated industries in South Africa. During that period, it has grown into an established South African manufacturer operating under licenses issued by the South African Revenue Service, investing substantially in local manufacturing capacity and contributing meaningfully to the South African economy. Carney Links is a holder of a valid cigarette manufacturing license issued by SARS in terms of the Custom and Excise Act, copy of which is attached, marked A for your reference. The company operates under that license and remains subject to continuous regulatory oversight by SARS. The manufacture of tobacco products is governed by an extensive legislative and regulatory framework, including licensing requirements, excise controls, customs supervision, record-keeping obligations, inspections, audits, and enforcement powers administered by SARS. Carney Links conducts its business within that statutory framework. Carney Links is a South African taxpayer and has throughout its existence engaged with SARS as the regulator responsible for the administration of the customs and excise regime applicable to licensed tobacco manufacturers. In this regard, we annex here to Carney Links' tax compliance certificate marked B. Carney Links contributes to the South African economy through investment in manufacturing infrastructure, the payment of taxes, and the creation of sustainable employment opportunities. The company directly employs approximately 100 South Africans and supports many additional livelihoods throughout its value chain, including tobacco merchants, transport operators, logistic providers, warehousing businesses, packaging suppliers, distributors, and retailers. Over the course of its operations, Carney Links has invested substantially in manufacturing facilities, plant, equipment, and distribution infrastructure within South Africa. Carney Links is also a member of the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, an association representing independent tobacco manufacturers and advocating for lawful competition, effective regulation, and meaningful measures to combat illicit trade. Like every legitimate participant in the regulated tobacco industry, Carney Links has a direct commercial interest in ensuring that illicit trade is effectively addressed. Illicit trade undermines compliant manufacturers, deprives the fiscus of significant revenue, and distorts lawful competition. Under the heading of historical regulatory matters, considerable reliance has been placed in the public domain and more recently in the affidavit deposed to by the Commission's investigator upon an affidavit deposed to by Carney Links Director Adriano Mazzotti on 6 May 2014. Carney Links does not seek to distance itself from the existence of that affidavit or from the fact that it contains admissions concerning historical conduct. Carney Links respectfully submits, however, that the affidavit cannot properly be understood unless it is considered within the statutory and factual context in which it was prepared. During 2014, Carney Links engaged with SARS in a comprehensive disclosure process concerning historical tax matters with the objective of making full disclosure concerning historical tax compliance and seeking to regularize its tax affairs under the applicable tax legislation administered by SARS, including the Tax Administration Act, Customs and Excise Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Income Tax Act, and any other legislation applicable to the matters under consideration. Adriano Mazzotti, in his capacity as director of Carney Links, deposed to an affidavit. Carney Links and SARS subsequently adopted differing positions concerning aspects of that engagement and its outcome. Carney Links does not consider it necessary or appropriate for this commission to determine those issues. They properly fall within the statutory framework governing the administration of tax legislation and the relationship between a taxpayer and the revenue authority. For present purposes, what is material is that the affidavit was prepared in the context of Carney Links' engagement with SARS concerning historical tax compliance and for the purposes of that disclosure process. The affidavit was intended to form part of a confidential engagement between Carney Links and SARS. At some stage thereafter, information purporting to originate from that affidavit entered the public domain without Carney Links' knowledge or authority. Carney Links is not in possession of the versions presently relied upon or quoted by various media organizations and is accordingly unable to verify their authenticity, completeness, or accuracy. Nor have the affidavits relied upon in media reports or the versions presently circulating publicly been published in full. Carney Links is therefore unable to determine whether quotations attributed to the affidavit accurately reflect the original document, whether they have been reproduced completely or whether they have been presented out of context. Carney Links further notes that the aspects of the media reporting concerning Carney Links, Mazotti, and the historical tax affairs have previously been found by the press ombudsman to have been inaccurate. The Commission is therefore respectfully requested to approach media reports concerning these matters with appropriate caution and to place reliance upon primary evidence properly before it. Carney Links accordingly submits that any assessment of the affidavit should be undertaken only with reference to the original document, its statutory and factual context, and the evidence properly before the Commission, and not by reference to excerpts, summaries, and characterizations appearing in media reports or public commentary. The affidavit demonstrates that Carney Links engaged with SARS concerning historical tax matters. It does not, without more, establish that Carney Links presently conducts its affairs unlawfully or forms part of any alleged criminal enterprise. The Commission is therefore respectfully requested to distinguish between historical regulatory engagement, ongoing tax administration processes, and allegations of present-day criminality. Under the heading Carney Links' present regulatory position to Mr. Mazotti's affidavit that was provided to SARS. It is a 2014 affidavit. The settlement agreement that was concluded between Carney Links and SARS was only concluded in 2020. And in fact, I don't propose to go to it in detail, but it is before the commissioners, and I'll just take you to the page reference in a moment. The basis upon which that settlement was reached were facts, different facts and admissions. Well, let me not say admission, different facts that were agreed to by Carney Links than the 2014 facts in the Mazzotti affidavit. So it extends over a period of time. And we have the objectively verifiable evidence before us because we requested it from SARS under a 10-6 subpoena, and it was provided to us with the necessary permissions to be able to use it in these proceedings. So I think, Chair, I will now go to that affidavit.
Maybe before you do that, even if it's just for the record, just to confirm that Carney Links or Mr. Mazzotti himself, have they requested to file an affidavit before the commission in the light of whatever is concerning them from the answering affidavit in the High Court, or to appear? Has there been that kind of approach from them?
Commissioner Baloy, the only communication that we've received from Carney Links is the letter that I've now read out.
Okay.
in the form of a submission. There's been no request to formally testify or provide anything on oath.
Okay, thank you.
Whilst you are looking, shall we be told where this should go in this annexures?
I think it needs to be, but can I first just summarize the main themes that emerge from that affidavit, because I do not intend to read out an entire affidavit. Of course, if there are any questions on it, we can discuss various parts of it. But in a nutshell, what you'll see is that the affidavit contains admissions by Mr. Mazzotti, both personally and as a representative of Carney Links. And these admissions relate to past customs, excise and tax non-compliance, failures to account for cash income, and failure to pay tax, VAT and excise duty. A particular transaction, which I can say because we've been given permission, the illegal Pieterse transaction. But again, I'm not going to go into detail, but the commissioners will see it as we look at the affidavit, which concern manufacturing cigarettes off the books. Then there's admissions of unlawful importation of tobacco under a false Swaziland pretext. There's admissions of unlawful surveillance of SARS officials and access to personal records. There's an admission of obtaining a confidential SARS document for cash, so paying someone inside SARS to get access to this document. And there's also admissions of improper cash payments to legal advisors. And it's clear from the affidavit, and it's explained by Mr. Mazzotti, that the cash payments were made on the belief that SARS officials were being paid off, and that by making these cash payments to these legal advisors, they would assist in resolving Carney Links's problems with SARS. But I must also say that in the affidavit, Mr. Mazzotti also says the following, that, and I'll come to it, that he believes he was naive to think that the SARS officials could be bought. He's very careful to say that. So let me go to the affidavit. The settlement agreement, as I said, was concluded on a different basis, on unlawful conduct, but on different unlawful conduct. The affidavit, the SARS bundle is CJC 361, and there's one file. And Mr. Mazzotti's affidavit is at page 16 of that file. See that it begins with the usual declarations. It's signed, it's a deposition by Mr. Adriano Saro Lorenzo Mazzotti. He explains the purpose of the affidavit. And if we could just scroll down, there's a lot of background and principles, etc. If we scroll down to paragraph 8, after describing the principles of restorative justice and settlement of conflicts, etc. At page 5 of the affidavit, I'm not sure what page it is in the bundle, it's paragraph 8, but it's halfway through paragraph 8. Where Mr. Mazzotti says, in light of this, in light of these principles, it's hoped that this process will culminate in the company accepting criminal liability in a criminal court, together with civil liability in respect of legislation administered by SARS, relying on the fact that it has cooperated with SARS, disclosed its wrongdoings of the past, did not waste the state's time, effort, and resources in doing so, demonstrated genuine resource, etc., etc. So that really is the crux of the purpose of this affidavit. At paragraph 11,